Okay, folks, welcome to Quantum Leap Live. We are live here with the Quantum Leap show for November 10th, and we're excited to welcome actually a family member of mine and somebody who has done some great things in the business world and in and around the Bay Area. My cousin Jimmy Woods, he is the owner of 5 brewery locations, and he's made dozens of brands. And he really went from brewing home brew in his bathtub, or and you clean the bottles in the bathtub. You actually don't brew the beer in the bathtub. Any home brewer will know that. But to really turn it into a great business, and it's for sale at Whole Foods, or I'll let him talk about some of the different distribution options. And he's also recently moved into wine, so we look forward to getting to that conversation. I did want to introduce my esteemed co-host Cory Nott, who's also he's an amateur brewer, but he has a real interest in this topic. Cory, how are you today? Oh, Cory.
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm here. It's Cory Nott, and I'm co-owner of Take Wing Coaching and a business coach, and happy to be here today.
Great. And with that, I guess I'll try to not say too much more about your story, Jim, without stealing your thunder. I did want to just ask you about your personal story, and how what you do professionally and how you got into that trade.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Cory, for having me. Yeah, I've been a home brewer for a long time. Actually, homebrewed in high school, had a little clandestine operation going. Quickly got discovered by my mom. And to my surprise, she was very supportive and said, "Hey, let's not tell your dad about this." So I continued to homebrew, had amassed several batches in the garage when finally my dad found my secret operation, and he had an Irish temper, picked up a baseball bat, and was looking pretty scary. And I said, "Hey, no, wait, taste it." And so he tried it, and he really liked it. And from then on, he let me continue. And I brewed all throughout high school and college. And I had the idea to brew a beer with yerba mate tea, which actually my cousin Dave introduced to me back in the day, and added it to the beer, and really liked the beer. Thought it was a unique offering that nobody else was really doing. So I explored different ways to bring it to market. I contract brewed it with the brewery up in Chico and distributed it throughout a couple states. And then over time, the brand Mate Vesa sort of was incorporated into a larger brand called Woods, and we opened up several different locations. Our first being on the corner of Dolores Park, where we opened up a very small sort of bottle shop and brew pub. And it was there that we started brewing a lot more unique recipes and experimenting with different ingredients and brewing processes. And we saw people really responding to that. So we continued to open up more retail. And so over time, I sort of shifted my focus from distribution to retail. So we actually have 6 locations now, 4 in San Francisco, 1 on Treasure Island, and 1 in Oakland. And we brew the majority of our beer at Treasure Island, and then we distribute it to our brew pubs across San Francisco and Oakland. And then we also do some distribution as well into a lot of independent bottle shops, Whole Foods, other independent retailers throughout the Bay Area, North Bay, South Bay. And we're just, trying to build a brand, get our name out there. Recently started making wine, doing minimal intervention, quote unquote, natural wine. So we're doing native fermentation and, with, like I said, minimal intervention. So it's been a real process, and we've had several pivots over time. And given the pandemic, we're just doing the best we can. It's obviously a very challenging environment. And I know you guys wanted to chat about how we've sort of addressed some of the challenges in this difficult time. So, yeah, I think we are highly dependent upon on-premise business. So selling a beer across the counter to somebody in one of our locations, there's a lot more margin there than there is if you are selling to Whole Foods or to an independent retailer. So that's really what keeps the lights on. And so to have that taken away is very, very difficult. So we have tried to adapt. We're doing more to-go business. So we do have some business at most of our locations, albeit a small percentage of what it was, but we have a smaller crew and we're trying to keep our overhead down. So we're doing the best we can. We've still been brewing a lot of beer. People are still drinking beer and wine. I will say that it's mostly benefited the big corporate brands that you can find in Safeway and larger retailers that have that access to shelf space, because a lot of smaller breweries were not set up to go into traditional retail channels. So I think that unfortunately this pandemic has had the effect of increasing market share for some of the regional breweries and the Budweiser, Miller, Coors at the expense of the smaller breweries, the mom and pops. So that's been unfortunate, but we've just been doing the best we can. We've been sort of behind the curve on opening for on-premise, even though San Francisco and Oakland have allowed limited on-premise outdoor dining. We have sort of been pretty conservative on that, just to make sure that everybody feels safe. We'll let a lot of other businesses try out the outdoor dining model and then learn from their mistakes. So we've recently started to dip our toe into that. We're building a parklet in San Francisco at our outbound location in the Sunset. So we're just being really cautious and trying to preserve capital in order to keep the lights on and to keep the business alive, so that when this one day subsides, we can try and claw back to where we were.
I appreciate your honesty and candor there, and I think there's a lot of businesses struggling, whole business sectors or parts of the economy that have been completely shut down by COVID. And I think the service industry, while the overall numbers are kind of marginally or okay, I think it's really favored certain chains, the bigger stores. So we appreciate
Definitely.
you telling that story. And I know a lot of those kind of sales, if you have more people coming into your locations, they're buying more beer there, they're buying more beer over at Whole Foods or other places, the kind of momentum. So thanks for getting into that. I don't know if you have heard anything about the any news about when more operations are going to be allowed, or if that's really just, it's technically 25% capacity, I guess, right now, but it's really based on the market and your own caution that you're kind of keeping, operations more minimal.
Yeah, I haven't studied the guidelines because, again, we're sort of trying to stay one step behind. We're going to let other businesses, move to 50% or all the other things that are possible. But the state has a program where, based on the number of positive test results and percentage of positive test results, then you move throughout different tiers, which are different colors. And so San Francisco is doing quite well. They've been pretty cautious. But yeah, I mean, it's just dependent upon A, what your test results look like, and B, what the county that you're in, how they are responding to the privileges, because they may be given the privilege to open things up and may decide it's prudent to hold back. So, it's kind of a mix of both of those things.
And somebody who's watching this and never has had your beer, what's the best way to try it out, or where is it available right now?
I think the best way is to go to one of our locations, woodsbeer.com. We have 3 in San Francisco, 1 on Treasure Island, 1 in Oakland, and just go by and chat with one of our bartenders and maybe grab a mixed 6-pack of different beers and wines and try them all. I mean, we have all sorts of different offerings, and I think that's part of the fun of what we do, is that there is so much variety and so many unique products. So, go have a conversation, maybe put together a mixed 6-pack at one of our locations, tip the bartender, of course. And, if you don't live in San Francisco or Oakland or don't feel comfortable going out, we also provide shipping, and there's also pickup. And then we are in some Whole Foods and independent markets across the Bay Area. So, you can try your luck at your local independent market. And if they don't have it, say, hey, we'd love for you to bring in some Woods beer because we're gonna buy it. That would do me a solid.
Okay, great. And sorry, I think I encroached on Cory's question there because I want to make sure we got that in. And I just would encourage folks to, that Treasure Island's such a beautiful location there. I know you also have weddings there from time to time. I don't know if that's something you're still offering in this time. And, the Woods, downtown Oakland, they all have this kind of down to earth, just brewery vibe. It's not kind of overly dressed up, or it's a great place to meet friends and get some things. So I think I just encourage folks to check it out. And I was going to turn it over to Cory. Do you mind picking it up at number 3, Cory?
Yeah, I think actually, I think you had me for a different question there. Sorry. Well, let me ask you first of all. So you've got a number of interesting products. Tell us a little bit about your product offerings and maybe even what you got coming next.
Sure. So we have a number of core beers. Those are the ones that you can always find that we have, unless there's some sort of outage. But I would say of the beers we sell the most, of the core beers, I would say Retro Pilsner, which is a Czech style Pilsner. It's actually inspired by Pilsner Urquell, which is one of the earliest Pilsners ever brewed in the Czech Republic. And we use a yeast that actually stays in suspension, and we use 4 malted barley as well, so from Germany. And so it's a traditional Czech Pilsner, a little hazy because the yeast is in suspension. I think that it really adds to the mouthfeel and the flavor, but very approachable. So, if you don't like it, you probably don't like beer. But it's a really great Pilsner. That's probably our best seller. Second most would maybe be Freeze Pop, which is a pale ale featuring Maris Otter malt, another 4 malted heirloom variety from England. And then we use Hallertau Blanc hops from Germany, it's very unique in that most German hops are more traditional noble hop character that are used for Pilsners or, Belgian beers or whatever. But Hallertau Blanc has a really interesting tropical green grape character to it. We also use some Strata in there as well. So it's just a really hoppy, malty, biscuity pale ale. Maybe the one that I've been drinking most the last few days. We also have some herbal offerings. We have Morpho, which is hibiscus, bay leaf, and yerba mate. It harkens back to a long time ago, over 500 years ago, before hops became commonplace in beer. So people would use all sorts of herbs to bitter the beer as a preservative, but also for flavoring. So we have 2 beers that have very little, if any, hop character. Local honey, which is eucalyptus, lavender, yarrow, and honey. And as I said earlier, Morpho, which is mate, bay leaf, and hibiscus. Both of those are really interesting. Morpho has some wine-like character to it, and really tangy from the hibiscus. And then local honey is pretty herbaceous, but pretty balanced as well, and pretty approachable. It's been very popular for us. Lastly, we've been brewing a lot of the Fuzz, which is we call it a fuzzy IPA. It's somewhere between a traditional West Coast and a hazy IPA, and features Strata hops, a lot of malted and unmalted wheat, and kind of plays in that hazy IPA category that has been so popular these days. And then on the wine side, we have all sorts of different varieties across, red, white, rosé. We started in 2018, so we have 2 vintages currently available. All the fruit was farmed in California, most of it, and within a few hours of San Francisco. So we're working with farmers, almost all of which are certified organic or biodynamic. And so we're working with the fruit and supporting the local farmers and putting our wine out there. which has been a real fun project for us. And then on the food side, we've partnered with El Porteño Empanadas. They're a really amazing company that makes authentic Argentine style empanadas. So we have 6 different flavors available at all of our locations. And nothing goes better with beer than one of Joey's El Porteño Empanadas.
Great. I have actually an idea myself. I have these growing in my yard. These are the bay nuts from the bay laurel tree. So we've got a bay forest here, and I've been roasting them up. And I'm thinking, how would I put this into a beer? It's kind of a spicy, earthy peanut flavor to it, but it takes a bit of work to process. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. The one challenge might be if there's oil in there, it can kind of kill the head retention. So, when you brew with peanut butter, you have to use dehydrated peanut butter. That's just the powder. So I would imagine you might have to do the same thing with it.
These would have to be powderized too. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little bit. You told us a little bit about your story of how you got started in the brewing and so on. But how did you get your break in the industry, and especially around doing kind of unusual beers? I know there's some call for them, but it takes a while to break into that palate. So and you're definitely going onto the cutting edge there.
Yeah, I mean, when I graduated from college, I actually started out in commercial real estate. I was working for a company that was part of Deutsche Bank doing essentially commercial real estate investment banking, buying and selling office, retail, industrial. And so was an analyst and was doing the beer brewing on the side. And I had the idea to brew with yerba mate. And I pride myself on, trying to come up with ideas people haven't done before. So I was really fixated on that, and spent all my time outside of work, weekends, pushing the beer, getting it approved at different stores, pushing it in different states, and made a lot of progress, but quickly realized that having a brick and mortar where I or one of my team members could hand sell it and say, hey, you probably never had anything like this before. Here, let me tell you why it's such a cool idea. That kind of gets lost when you're the dusty bottle on the shelves of a liquor store. You don't have that human interaction. So to have such a differentiated product, I think it is really important to have that human touch, that human connection. So having the retail locations was what really enabled that to take off. And so, we sell a lot of beer. That we have 2 beers with yerba mate. We also have, local honey, which is eucalyptus, lavender, yarrow, and honey. I mean, it's crazy that maybe 60 to 70% of our sales is from herbally infused beers. That really sets us apart. I don't think we could do it just putting it in traditional channels without the support that you get from having your own locations and hand selling it to people.
Great. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I'll definitely have to give them a try.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just had a comment, and I know Jim's been at this for a while, and I know we always like to explore kind of secrets to success. And what I've really seen with Jimmy, so I have a 5-year-old here who's jumping around. Hey, Cory, hey, get out of here for a second. This is your cousin Jimmy, by the way, who has another cousin for you to play with.
Hi, Cory.
Okay, hold on. But really, what I've seen with Jim is he's so tapped into the market, that realization about, having the brick and mortar location. And once he got that, he just really seems like he has this dedicated staff, and he's really tapped into the, the social aspect of beer and the SF social scene, and combined with basically being a beer genius, I'm going to call it, his inspirations for beer is incredible. And when you kind of get people talking about that, I really feel like he's in a lot of ways kind of done a grassroots campaign around the Bay Area for his beers. He used to do these big beer brunches, which really I think helped with some exposure too, before you had your kind of brick and mortar location. So I know you touched on this a little bit, but I was just curious if you feel I was accurate there about that kind of grassroots effort that you really did kind of starting in terms of, how to get that initial exposure.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you got to do whatever you can to get people's attention in a way that benefits your brand. Obviously, if you're um, doing things that aren't on brand, it's kind of counterproductive. But yeah, I mean, I think Beer Brunch was a beer and food pairing brunch, which was nobody had ever sort of done anything like that before. And the fact that some of our beers had yerba mate made a lot of sense to have it in the morning. And so that was a really fun event that helped build our brand, build awareness. We got a lot of people introduced to our beers through that event. And so, and we've continued to do it. We haven't done it since the pandemic, obviously, but it's been a great tool for us. I mean, I think that there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of big brands with a ton of money that can dominate people's consciousness and really make splashes. So it's almost impossible to build something new if you don't start small and you don't try to have a differentiated strategy to reach people. I think we probably, could have done a better job in some respects with getting our word out there. A lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, I lived, in San Francisco. I never heard of you guys. I'm so glad I stumbled upon you." So I think that there are ways that we could do better outreach, but I think having our locations has been a really great way for us to break through all of that clutter out there and really connect with people in their home neighborhoods. And our team members are great friends with some of the customers, and we're just kind of being weaved into the local community in a way that's really meaningful, profound, and it's a lot more fun to build a brand when you have all these people rooting you on and that have sort of a vested interest in the brand because they've adopted it a long time ago and they want to see you succeed because, as we succeed, their neighborhood just gets more and more vibrant. So, it's a really cool approach. Obviously, with the pandemic, it makes it really difficult to have those personal interactions, which is kind of our bread and butter. So, but I will say that it seems like there's a lot of goodwill out there. People have really appreciated us staying open, having beer and empanadas and wine to go. I think that people have told us on numerous occasions, "Hey, this is a real great thing for the neighborhood, and we all really appreciate what you're doing here." And so that's been good. We're doing the best we can, and I think people appreciate that.
Great. I might just put a link to all the locations in the comments section. I assume I can find that on your website. Cory is a real craftsman with some of this stuff. Did you have any more questions for Jim about his kind of business sense and story, or also the brewing of his beers? I know what you have a real interest in too, Cory.
No, I just found it all very interesting. Thank you. I've always kind of wanted to play with different things. I remember reading, you read some history books and so on, and they talk about what goes into beer, and it's like, well, that sounds very interesting. And, getting a hold of all that. Actually, I would be curious about one thing, just because it seems to be changing a bit. Where do you get your supplies if you're willing to share? I mean, just, is there like any great stores that you'd recommend?
Yeah.
For the home brewers out there who want to play around too.
Well, I will say that I, like many of the brewers in the Bay Area, got my start at Oak Barrel in Berkeley.
Yeah.
Which
they've been around a long time.
For a very long time. And I walked in there in 1996, and Homer was behind the bar there, or behind the counter, and helped me out. And I'd bring in samples for him, and he'd say, "Oh, diacetyl, you rush this one," or, he'd give me pointers. So there's a really great community there, and a lot of brewers have been sort of made by that home brewing store. And anybody in the industry will tell you that home brewing is the lifeblood of the brewing industry, because people, the super users, or the people that are most in the know and pursuing differentiated product and setting the agenda for what flavors people expect in beers, those are the home brewers. They're the mavens, are the ones driving the trends. So yeah, I think that Oak Barrel has been a really important thing for me and for a lot of brewers in the community.
Yeah, and especially now that everybody's kind of stuck at home,
Yeah,
We
I
see
understand that
people
it's
getting into it.
yeah, homebrewing is seen an uptick. I mean, people they got more time on their hands. Maybe they could take a Zoom call while they're mashing in or something. uh, so yeah, it doesn't surprise me that brewing has been popular during these times.
Great. Well, we'll let you guys get back to work. Thanks for coming on and sharing your insights. I know you have a whole, wealth of knowledge around the industry, and I just encourage folks to come check him out at one of the locations and talk to his staff. Really some of those beers are about as unique as you can find anywhere. So, the kind of care that you put into those brands and your business really shows. And, hopefully things can turn around quickly here. I know with your business sense and your care that you put into those beers, that's never going to go out of style. It's just being able to kind of open up here in this tough environment. So thanks for sharing your story. And
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Appreciate your support over the years for sure.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
thanks everyone. We'll see everyone next week for Quantum Leap Live. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Cory.
Thank you.